Hello, and welcome to Inventors Helping Inventors. I'm your host, Alan Beckley, inventor of the Wonder Wallet. If you're an inventor searching for proven ways to make money with your invention, if you dream to see your product selling in stores everywhere, you've come to the right place. There's no better place to get help than from experts, inventors who've already achieved success. Every week, I interview successful inventors, asking them the questions you want to know. Tune in to learn from the experts so you can get your invention out of the tank and into the bank.
From there, I moved to Edmonton, where kind of a change happened. That's where I found out that the industry was really suffocating. I ended up working in a call center, sitting next to people with computer engineering degrees.
IHI Nation, don't you absolutely hate to miss out on something good? I want to share with you that my premier training for inventors, the Inventors Bootcamp, well, registration closed at midnight Sunday, last night, so you just missed out. However, I provide for listeners to my podcast only, if you act quickly and you're listening on Monday, the 3rd of February, you'll get an extension. You can still sign up to join the Inventors Bootcamp. So you'll get 5 days of live Zoom meeting training. It's going to teach you how to compare and contrast your invention versus the competition to make it stand out. And then from that, you'll create a clear, concise, and compelling 30-second pitch for your product, the kind that gets attention with marketers. So how do you sign up and still get into the bootcamp? Make sure to register today, Monday, the 3rd of February. Just go to alanbeckley.com/bootcamp. And oh, by the way, all this training, the 5 days of live Zoom meetings, is available to you for only $47. But you can't wait. This is the last day, and it's only open to podcast listeners like you on Monday, February 3rd. Again, to join us tonight in the bootcamp that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, just go to alanbeckley.com/bootcamp. Many podcast listeners just like you have joined us in the bootcamp and are making progress and gaining traction. I look forward to seeing you in the bootcamp tonight. As an inventor, do you ever feel lonely? Because no one seems to understand what you are doing or why. What if there was a community of other inventors just like you that you could meet, share with, and learn from every month? What if every month you had a front row seat to learn how to license, research companies, and sharpen your marketing message from successful inventors like Marcy McKenna, Lisa Lloyd, Aaron Krause, and many others? Guess what? The Inventors Helping Inventors membership group, or IHIMG, gives you all of that and more for only $35 a month, less than a few lattes at Starbucks. Just go to alanbeckley.com/IHI35 for all the details and to join us now. From the moment you join, you'll get instant access to over 60 recorded videos in the IHIMG Video Vault, where you'll learn how Jim DeBetta ventures products successfully in a challenging retail market, about Lisa Lloyd's secret research resources to determine which products to pursue and which to leave behind, how Serena Oliver was able to craft 3 successful Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns, how Bop It inventor Dan Klitzner launched over 50 successful products in the uber-challenging toy business, and more. By the way, all of those videos are just from 2022. There's lots more from 2023 and 2024 in the Video Vault for members. To join us now in the Inventors Helping Inventors membership group, just go to alanbeckley.com/IHI35. I look forward to meeting you and helping you to accelerate your journey and gain traction as an inventor. Welcome to episode number 481. Today, I interview Greg Fredin. Greg Fredin grew up in the small mining town of Flin Flon, Manitoba. As his father was an executive in the mining industry, the family moved frequently all over Canada. He went to college in Lethbridge in southern Alberta, where he took courses in computer hardware and network technology. He's now finishing his degree in computer science and information systems. He spent over 5 years as a certified welder during a time when tech employment was depressed. Today, Greg is a software engineer with a strong background in artificial intelligence, back-end development, and system design. He has worked on AI-driven applications in text detection and in medical imaging, collaborating with global teams and contributing to multiple research papers. His experience spans industries, from advanced research to practical software solutions. In addition to his technical expertise, Greg is a journeyman welder and holds a U.S. and Canadian patent for a foldable welding screen. A NASA iTech Cycle 2 winner, he is dedicated to continuous learning and innovation across multiple fields. You'll want to listen to this entire interview where Greg shares how he worked for a while in a call center during a time when jobs in technology industries were hard to get into. Also, why his welding screen product provides a portable solution to make outdoor welding safer, reducing fire hazards and health impacts to nearby workers. And finally, why he believes that one of the keys to invention success is simply to stay with your product idea and not give up on it when things are discouraging. Now, let's get right to our interview with Greg Fredin. Greg Fredin, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Greg, I want to start out with asking, could you share a bit of your background with our listeners? Where did you grow up and go to school, and what did you do before you became an inventor? Could you share that with our listeners?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Manitoba. For the first 9 years, I was in a small mining town called Flin Flon. And then right after grade 4, we started moving around the country every 2 years. My father was a mining executive, so I went everywhere from northern Ontario to Newfoundland to southern BC to southern Ontario, back to southeastern BC, where I finally graduated. So I covered the country pretty well. And then I went to college in southern Alberta, in Lethbridge, where I took computer hardware and computer network technician courses and started off my career there working at Future Shop, running the tech department. From there, I moved to Edmonton, where kind of a change happened. That's where I found out that the industry was really suffocating. I ended up working in a call center, sitting next to people with computer engineering degrees. So I decided that since I was in Alberta, I should get into the trades. So I ended up moving back to BC, where I graduated from, and started working as a welder and went to school, came back to Edmonton, got my journeyman Red Seal welding tickets, and worked as a welder for many years. And then while I was doing the welding is when I really started coming up with inventions, ideas, or different ways of doing things. I found that in the trades, I didn't have the normal outlook on things of this is the way we always do it, because I didn't grow up in the trades. So I always saw a different way of doing things. So that's kind of where that all came from. But then I started going back into the tech field with programming, which was something I tended to shy away from at the beginning. And I started working with companies like RSMD and getting into the programming. And I went back to university to get a Bachelor of Science in Computer and Information Systems that I'm still currently working through. And I've been being a software developer for some time now.
That's a very interesting, diverse background, and there's several interesting aspects to your story that I'd like to chat just a little bit about. One of them, it sounds like you've been all over Canada with your dad being in the mining business and moving about, certainly all over Western Canada, but I think you did mention Ontario at one point in time as well, BC and many other places. And you made reference to saying That one point, I think you mentioned you were working in a call center and other people in the call center working with you were software developers too. And you said that the industry really got beat up. Could you highlight that aspect just a little bit more? Was there a point in time when that career path or that direction was just really hammered, or was it part of where you were living, or what was going on then? When was that?
Yeah, sure. I think that was back in 2005. I was living in Edmonton where I had met my wife, and I was still looking to get into a technical position like I had at Future Shop for repair or network design or something. But everywhere I looked and applied to, they just said, no, we're not interested, or they were hiring within. A lot of places back then tended to take people from within and train them instead of hiring somebody without. So when I ended up at that call center, literally every time I went to work, some of the guys that were sitting beside me answering calls for Comcast internet in the US, they had computer engineering degrees out of like big universities and stuff. And that was the best job in the tech industry they could find. Being in Alberta with all the oil and mining, trades just seemed the way to go to make a living at the time. I decided to make the switch.
Thanks so much for sharing that, because it shows a lot of things, life adventures that all of us go, or most of us go through at one point in time or another. And that is sometimes your preferred direction gets derailed by economic forces, so to speak, beyond our control, and you have to make a shift. In this case, your shift was going back towards the trades successfully and got into welding. And that actually leads me to my next question, and that is, you've invented a welding screen. Could you describe your welding screen invention where our listeners can visualize it and how it works? And also, from your experience working as a welder, what is the problem that your welding screen solved, and why do you think maybe nobody before you came up with this had solved it? Could you speak to that?
Sure, I'll give it a go. The welding screen itself, the easiest way to think of it, because it's a folding welding screen, would be if you've seen little kids playing soccer and stuff. They've got those little pop-up nets or a pop-up sunscreen that they have now. It's basically like that. I call it a half dome tent that breaks apart in the center, folds down upon itself, and then in. So it folds up into a nice little thing that you can tuck under your arm and take with you. And the reason that's a big deal in the welding industry is because everything we do in welding is hot. It can start fires, the light will blind you, and it's a dangerous trade to be in. And when you look at the standard safety devices that have been used in the trades for years, the standard welding screen that is used is, I believe it's like a 8-foot by 4-foot flat rectangular screen that just stands up on a very simple T-shaped frame. So you take 3 or 4 of those big screens, put them around your workspace, and then if you're welding, the sparks bounce off it. The light is dulled from the outside and it stops all the UV from getting through. So it's a safety thing. Other things that we do in welding, like gouging, where you superheat the metal with gouging rods and use compressed air to blow the metal away. So if you're fixing cracks in that, you're really shooting hot and molten metal away from your skillet shop. So sparks still fly, fires still happen. But there's a big industry, because I was in the mining industry, where the welders are out in the field working on heavy mining equipment like trucks and shovels. We don't have any of those screens that you can bring because they don't fit easily on a truck. You can't store them on equipment. So you might just have some fire blanket that you put up with wire to try to stop all these dangerous activities and to try to keep your area safe. So what my screen did is you can throw that screen in the back of your truck. You can haul it up to wherever you're working, set it up in 2 seconds, and everything that goes into that screen stays in the screen. It doesn't bounce off the screen back at you, so you don't get burnt. And the sparks that go in there, because of it has an oblong shape to it, like a half ellipse. So anything that goes in there shoots down to the back and to the ground and stays inside. So when you're done and you lift it off, you've got a nice little dirt ring uh, that shows the shape of the screen. And that's all the sparks and the metal that could have started fires. It's all staying right there. So your cleanup is easier when you're done, because take down and fold up of the screen also takes 2 seconds. So your entire area is secure. You can weld into it, you can grind into it, gouge into it, stops the wind from messing up the gas that you might be using at your weld station or your work area if you're outside. It had a lot of good effects. And I was just building it because I got tired of like putting up fire blanket and duct taping fire blanket to pieces of equipment and stuff to try to secure an area. This kind of solved that problem.
This is fascinating the way I understand it, in the sense that you were saying what was conventionally used in the industry were these rather large sections that were like 8 foot by 4 foot, and you would just space them around your work area. And in a shop, that could be generally effective, but it bounced sparks and heat and other things in all sorts of directions. And I gather it's some distance away from where you're actually welding, where it sounds like yours was smaller, but also a local dome right where you're working that would actually absorb the sparks rather than having them bounce everywhere, and contain them in such a way that they could be safe even in outdoor and other kinds of environments, preventing fires from being started and other kinds of problems. Did I get that right?
Yes, 100%. The screen itself is only, I think, 2.5 feet high and wide when it's set up. So we can fit in really enclosed spaces. So it works in just about anywhere you need. I have a prototype that I use, and I used it for years. And I used it on trucks and shovels, even used it on drag lines. And drag lines is actually where the idea came from, because on a drag line, I don't know if many listeners might know what a drag line is, but the inside of this really big shovel has a lot of motors and generators, and they're all side by side, and there's not a lot of room in there. And this equipment moves dirt really fast. So when these go down for maintenance, every single trade is on there. It's like you throw as many people as you can on there and fix as much stuff as you can, as quick as you can, because you want that thing digging. So there's a lot of personnel walking around. So there's a lot of safety that could get overlooked. And you don't want to be throwing sparks at a bunch of electricians that are working 10 feet away. And sometimes it's hard to avoid that. So it was always a pain to work around that and try to make sure everybody was safe. But my screen managed to fix that.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to segue a little bit and mention, like other inventors, you have diverse interests, and your career paths have reflected that. You have a passion for cutting edge software development and even robotics. Out of curiosity, are you working on any new inventions in that field, or the field of robotics, or that area? Could you share kind of your thoughts of how you've transitioned more into the software area? And I was particularly interested when you mentioned robotics. Have you done anything with regards to inventing in that area?
In that area, I am definitely working on some new ideas. I'm seeing if they are patentable right now with software and hardware with NFC technology. There's an idea that I'm basically whiteboarding right now and looking through to see if there's any room in the marketplace for that. So I'm working on that right now. And I'm also working with a group that's working on a proof of concept. We're currently in stealth mode, but I can say that it's using AI and drone technology. So I'm very excited to be starting that.
Yeah, that sounds really great. You've probably heard of Pegasus, I suspect, that is working on a lot of wildfires in your part of the world as well, Western Canada. I've interviewed them twice. They fly drones that are safe and autonomous, so to speak, and they can fly way outside line of sight. But they've done a lot of really cool things. And in Canada, especially the wildfires, they've been extremely helpful. So that's perhaps another application of the combination of those two things.
Yeah, Pegasus is really cool. Cole is doing some amazing things with Pegasus right now. They're a really interesting company. I really like those guys.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, I've had Cole on the podcast a couple of times. I'm sure I'm going to have him on the podcast again. I do think they've got an amazing company and doing work that's so much needed for sure. I guess my other question then is projecting forward. Looks like you are developing some things that are still in the proof of concept phase, et cetera. What would you say is going to be next for you with regards to inventing maybe in the next 6 months or year? Where do you see yourself headed? What's your future focus, and how you might be melding software development along with creating products to go with it? Could you share with our listeners your thoughts there?
Yeah, right now my focus is on this stealth drone project. It's a very exciting thing with a lot of different vectors that it can go on. So I'm very excited about that. The project on my own, like the technology using the NFC that I was talking about, I've already put together a prototype for part of it using an NFC. So I used an Arduino chip and some NFC readers and writers. So I have the basics of that. So you can actually transmit data from a computer onto a card or a key fob or something, which is the basis of what I'm working on. And I'm trying to get the software side of it together and planning out how the app would work and how everything would go together with that. So that's a two-pronged approach. If I get the app and the POC working, then I would try to get the hardware side made into a workable device that could be used and produced.
And just for our listeners, could you the acronym NFC? That's near field. What is that again?
Near field communication. It's basically like when you tap on your phone to pay or open a hotel room door.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. But I thought it might be good just for some of our listeners maybe saying, what is this NFC stuff? So, yeah. As we roll towards a close, are there any parting words you'd like to leave us with?
The biggest thing I would say for your listeners is just don't give up on an idea. My welding stream might not have worked out originally, but it's still sitting in my garage. And if an opportunity comes up, I'm ready to go with it. And I haven't let that stop me from moving forward with ideas into the future. And the biggest thing is don't try to do everything by yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help and ask for people's advice on things, because I tried to keep the cards a little too close to my chest with that. And I think that hampered me in trying to get it out. And if I had reached out and asked people like yourself for help, I might have been able to move that forward. So, be fearless in your invention and trust in it, where that thing's meant to go.
My last question for you then, Greg, is how can our listeners reach you if they have other questions?
If anybody wanted to reach out, the easiest way is to just find me on LinkedIn. I'm actually pretty sure I'm the only Greg Fredin on there. If you manage to spell my last name, Fredin, you'll find me.
Greg, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your life story and the things that you went through and the thread of all the different things you did as you developed and went into different industries as well as trades, and now are doing a lot in the software space and the AI space. So again, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us, and we might touch bases with you again in another 6 months or a year and see what you got going on at that time.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me, and I hope in 6 months I do have more to talk about.
Yeah, sounds great. All right. Thanks a lot.
So you're done searching for your product and it's not out there. Yay! Maybe you filed for a provisional patent and done some marketing research or surveys. Heck, maybe you've even created a rough prototype, then found that, although it kind of works, it looks like something from the Stone Age. You'd be embarrassed to show it to your friends, much less to a manufacturer for a licensing pitch. What if I could put you in touch with a guy who offers free consultations, takes no money down, no money up front, and will give you a quote on your project before he starts? What if I told you that this same guy can help you design your product and make you a virtual prototype before you ever put a penny into building a physical one? What if I told you he could make you patent drawings, CAD files for manufacturing, and even make marketing videos and build you a website? If this sounds like someone you want to talk to, let me introduce you to my first podcast sponsor, Brian Keast at I Draw Dreams for Inventors. With 3.5 years of trade school and 15 years of mechanical experience working as a mechanic for General Motors, you have someone that's seen countless design failures and how they were fixed. Also, he had a 25-year career as a general contractor who designed his own houses and remodels on computer-aided design. In getting plans through countless building departments, he gained a tremendous amount of experience by working directly with structural engineers. The many years of combined experience in these two careers gave him a unique look into stresses and failures in design. He brings this wealth of knowledge and experience to his company, I Draw Dreams, as the CAD guy who will design a product for you that will work. Every inventor I've referred to Brian has come away delighted with the work he has done for them, and I think you will too. Just make sure to tell them that Alan sent you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Inventors Helping Inventors. If you like the show, please tell your friends about it. Make sure to subscribe in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss a single episode. Talk to you soon.